Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into my 5 essential tips to help you take awesome concert photos. Now stay tuned to the end for my bonus tip as well, and if you enjoy this video, please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Tip number 1, use fast prime or zoom lenses and shoot them wide open. Now, concert photography by its nature means you're going to be shooting in low light environments, and smaller venues are really notorious for inconsistent or dodgy lighting, which is going to make your job even more difficult. Now, for this reason, I love fast prime lenses for my concert work. I'm often shooting in intimate venues where there's very little to no barrier between the stage and the audience. So I opt for lenses that are anywhere from 50 to 75 millimeters or so, with as fast as I can get 1.4 or 1.2 openings. These fast lenses let in more light, which means I can keep my ISO lower and capture cleaner images with less noise. And I like primes because they're also smaller than zoom lenses and therefore less obtrusive, and it's easier for me to move around a busy club with a simple prime lens. Sometimes, however, I do use a fast zoom like a 70 to 200 2.8 or a 24 to 70 2.8 if I want wider angle. But remember, in a poorly lit venue, and if you're shooting in a dimly lit bar or club like the ones I frequent in New York, there's a big difference in the ISO setting you can use between a 1.2 or a 1.4 and even a 2.8. So I still opt for the prime lenses as much as possible. Tip number 2, get as close as possible. Now, this is huge for capturing the energy of a performance, as well as for capturing angles and expressions that you can't get from very far away, even with a zoom lens, because it's different. So my advice is to get as close as humanly possible to your subjects and shoot wide open, as I mentioned, with your prime lens. One thing, however, is to make sure that you always respect the space and the energy of not just the performers, but the audience as well. You don't want to be that photographer everyone is annoyed with. So I shoot in a lot of jazz clubs, and I shoot a lot of singer-songwriters and open mics. And in these environments, people are there to listen pretty intently. So a lot of these venues are pretty quiet when the music is happening. If you're intrusive or obtrusive as a photographer, trust me, the audience and performers will not appreciate it. But you can stealthily and respectfully move around a room and get close to your performers without annoying anyone in your vicinity. At a rock concert, of course, the vibe is very different. So if it's loud and chaotic, people are moving around, it's easier to get close without being disruptive. But always be aware of your surroundings and respect your space. And that leads me to my next tip. Tip number 3, ask for forgiveness, not permission. So I was photographing a benefit concert at a venue I'd never been to before, and it was really cramped. In fact, the first row of tables were only about 2 feet from the stage, and the performers were concentrated in the middle of a very wide stage, which made it very difficult for me to capture the action from either side. So I decided to cautiously shimmy my way in that little space in between the first row of people and the stage. And I had to ask more than one person, excuse me, as I squeezed my way through, and they had to move their legs a little bit. But I'm glad I did it because I got the shot. And the funny thing is, once I did that, all the other photographers who were there took my cue and followed me in, and no one was really bothered by it. But it was definitely one of those situations where I just decided to go for it, and if someone complained, I would deal with it later. Now, I'm not saying be reckless or disrespectful, but when you're in a gray area situation like that, and it's unclear if you can shoot from a specific spot, just go for it. Because if you stop and ask someone who works at the venue, they're going to default to a no, simply because they don't know what you're trying to do and they don't want to be responsible if you make someone upset. Also, be stealthy, be professional, and just get as close to the action as possible without disrupting anybody around you. But don't be afraid to go for it and get the shot you're looking for. If you do get called out, usually a simple apology goes a long way. Tip number 4, capture candid moments. Some of my favorite images I've taken at concerts have been when the performers aren't playing. So watch for those in-between moments. A quick smile shared between band members, a laugh, or a moment of connection with the crowd. These candid shots shots are going to reveal a much more genuine side of the performers, and they show a vulnerability that's going to add a lot of depth and dimension to your photo. And by nature, the artist will have much less of this kind of photo, since most photographers obviously are going to be focused on getting a shot of them singing or playing their instrument. So it's definitely going to give you photos that stand out and are a little bit different and a little bit more creative. Tip number 5, shoot in black and white. Now, as I mentioned already, many small venues, and that's mostly what I shoot, small to medium-sized venues, have terrible lighting setups, or worse, sort of a random mix of RGB lights that are haphazardly placed and lit with very little understanding of color theory. And this can be a huge challenge, because sometimes the light on the performer is just downright bizarre and it's not going to look good. Now, I'm not talking about great stage lighting, because that could be a huge asset to you and you want to exploit that, of course. But even in some of the medium-sized venues I've shot, sometimes the lighting choices can be kind of dubious. So in these cases, I'm going to make sure I shoot, as well as color, a lot of black and white. Shooting in black and white isn't just an artistic choice in this case, it's also a practical one, because it allows me to strip away harsh, distracting colors and focus on contrast and the emotion of the subject in the moment. Plus, black and white is timeless, and it creates an intense dramatic look that I think really works well for live music. So definitely do some black and white at your next concert. All right, well, I hope you found these 5 tips helpful, and if you made it this far, here's your bonus tip. Shoot the dress rehearsal if you can, and if there is one. So if I'm hired to shoot a concert, I'll often ask if there's a dress rehearsal I can attend, and this is gold for getting shots you can't get during the performance. During a dress rehearsal, you can get on the stage, you can get behind the stage, you can capture close-ups of hands, instruments, and faces, experiment with unique angles that you really can't get during the show, and especially in a small, intimate venue, you can really get a lot of cool things. So just remember, if you do this, while the dress rehearsal is great for getting some unique creative shots, it's certainly not a substitute for the live event, because the energy is completely different. And of course, the artist is going to be completely different once they're in the element with the crowd. All right, well, that wraps up my top tips for awesome concert photos. If you found these tips helpful, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more concert photography tips, headshot and portrait tips, gear reviews, and more, all about photography. And if you have a cool photography tip for concerts that you want to share, drop it in the comments below. Here's wishing you an awesome day. Go out and take some great photos. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.